question we're often asked from firms that are making the transition from AutoCAD to Revit is, what can I do with the detail libraries that I've created inside of AutoCAD? And the good news is you can use them. It's just the fact that we're going to recreate them in Revit, which is actually a pretty quick process because of the tools that we can leverage inside of Revit. So first of all, I have an architectural detail here, but again, this could be mechanical or plumbing or structure. It's the same process, and I'm going to be working in Revit architecture, but it's the same exact workflow if you're in Revit MEP or Revit structure. So first thing I want to do is prepare the AutoCAD drawing to be linked into the Revit file. And what I like to do is just get rid of some of the hatches that I may not need to recreate this detail with. Explode smart objects is a nice thing to do. And basically what you're trying to do is just simplify things for Revit, and it'll just make it easier to work with. I'm also going to run a command called overkill, which is going to delete any overlapping line work. Type that in there. Okay, so it deleted 51 different duplicates. That just cleans things up a bit. I'm also going to purge to get rid of any extra layers, just minimize the file size. Okay, so this is ready to go. So I'm just going to save this to my desktop. Okay, and now we can jump over to Revit. What we're going to do is create a dummy project that's going to store all of our different detail and drafting views. And then what we can do in our working projects for our different buildings that we're creating, we can insert those views from the dummy project. And I'll show you that workflow. So first thing I'm going to do is just do a new project. And I'm going to save it as, just call it drafting views. So this project is going to store every single drafting view. This is something that you would locate on your network. I can control the amount of backups I have. I'll just set it to 2 here. Actually, I'll change it to 1 just because keep things cleaner on my desktop. Okay, so now first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to View, Drafting View, and this is going to be a parapet section. Scale's fine. Find on my project browser. Okay, next thing I want to do is link in the AutoCAD drawing that I prepared just a second ago. So I'm going to go to Insert, Link, and there it is right there. I'm going to keep it black and white because if I do like preserve and keep the colors, it gets a little difficult to see. Auto center to center is fine. I want to bring in all the layers, and I'll auto detect the import units. Hit open here. Okay, so we don't see it, but I'm just going to hit ZF for zoom to fit, and there it is. Next thing I want to check is to make sure the scale came in correctly. So if I just do a DI for dimension and, for example, check on this brick, you can see it's 7'8", which is way, way, way too large. So what I'm going to do now is click and look at the type properties of this linked file. Okay, here's our issue. Scale factor set to 25.4. We're going to change that to 1. Apply. Okay, it got really small now because we were zoomed way out. I'll hit ZF for zoom to fit again, and now we're right on track. Okay, so now that the drawing is in Revit, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Visibility Graphics for this drawing, look at my imported categories, and I'm just going to halftone that entire drawing and apply. Okay, it's just going to make it easier to trace over top of and understand what I have and have not traced. So now I can get over to my Annotate tab, and I'll start off by using a repeating detail to work on this brick in this CMU, and then I'll just show you how we can insert a detail component, do a hatch region, and as well as just trace with dumb line work. Okay, so first of all, our repeating detail component. Brick, it's already set. Draw it up from that line there. Bring it up to that point, and now I can go ahead and align it properly. You can see it picking up the different lines that are inside of AutoCAD. It's a little difficult to see here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pull it to the side for a second and align this way first. And I'm also going to go ahead and pin this in place. Okay, that'll keep my my drawing from moving now that it's fine to move it at first, but now I kind of want it to stay still. Okay, we'll say the brick comes up to there. So that's good. Now if I wanted to put the CMU in, what I'm going to have to do for that is actually load. Repeating detail is basically a system family that uses a detail component and an offset distance. So first thing I need to do is load the CMU detail component. So I'm going to come into detail components, masonry, concrete unit. We'll do want a section view of it. 3/4 is fine, so I'll open that. Next thing I'm going to do is go back to my annotate component, repeating detail, and I want to make a new type. So I'm going to duplicate this and call this CMU. I need to change the type I'm using, so I'm going to use 8x8x16. The spacing is going to be 8 inches for this particular component. We'll keep it at fixed distance, so that's good. So now what I can do is right click and create similar, but go to my type selector and set it to CMU. Okay. Now I can drag that up. Looks a little small. It's a funky size block, but bring that up to there, and I'm going to move it down so I can see where I'm aligning to. I'm actually going to align it to this outside edge. Okay. I'm also going to put in a C-channel stud right here. So I'll do insert. And I'm thinking I have to load the family. I don't believe it's loaded with the default template here. So I'm going to go into metals, C-stud sections. So now when I go to annotate detail component, I can grab, it's a 6-inch stud. I'm going to rotate it with spacebar, place one there, and just getting it rough, and then I'm getting it where I actually want it to be. Remember, with our align tool, we're selecting where we want it to go and then selecting what we want to send there. So that's good. Next thing I might want to do is put the insulation that we had back in there. So I'm going to select this tool and I can set it to 6-inch width. Zoom and get a midpoint here. Okay. I'm going to see if I could change the, there we go. I'm going to change it to 3, make it a little tighter on the insulation. I just like the way that looks a little bit. Next thing I can do is just trace with dumb lines. So if I go to my annotate detail lines, and maybe these are going to be medium lines, I can create new line styles through the Manage tab. But with this Pick Lines tool, you can see I can just select individual lines in this manner here from AutoCAD. So this is what I mean when I say trace. So this is pretty quick, but it can also get pretty tedious pretty quick. For example, on this, it's referencing each individual line of this corrugated metal deck, but I can use tab. There you go. I pre-highlighted and then hit tab a few times, and I can select. And now it's grabbed that entire metal deck. So that's kind of nice. Next thing I might want to do is add some hatching. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll trace a few other things first just to kind of complete this. Again, I can use tab there, that's quick. I'm just using pre-highlight and tab to quickly select on things. Okay, so maybe I want like a sand hatch in here. Or this hatch for my sheathing. So I'm going to go ahead and exit this command. I'm going to go over to region, filled region. Okay, so I'm basically sketching out the area that it's going to be, and I'm going to use invisible lines for this, just so this filled region doesn't have a border, so to speak. I could have combined this and not trace it over. That probably would have been the cleaner way to do it. But I'm just going to make this that. Check that off. So again, that's not necessarily the hatch I want, but I can look at the different hatches that I have by going into Edit here and then Edit here. So what I actually wanted to be was plywood. So I'm going to hit cancel. I think wood 2 might already be that. Nope, it's just this one. So I'm going to duplicate it. Make it plywood. Set this correctly. Okay, so that's that there. That's kind of a weird hatch there, but that's fine. You get the idea. We could also do a hatch for the gravel here, as well as start to go to our text and start to create some of these notes again. Maybe I want this all to be 1/8 Arial. So again, I'm just making a new type, and this is a process that you'll do a lot inside of Revit. Okay. And maybe I decide I don't like the way this arrow looks, so I'm going to edit the type properties and come over to arrow and make it filled 15 degree, and you're going to notice that both of those types change. Okay, so I could go through and do that. All right, so now you kind of understand how we can recreate these details quickly inside of Revit using these tools. And a lot of times I like to work in thin lines, and I can change that just by hitting TL, but if you hit TL again, you'll see the actual thickness of the line work. Okay, so now I could go ahead and save this, and let's say I was in my Architecture 2012 project. What I could do here is, let's say I was looking at this section, and I needed this detail here. Now, it's not the same exact detail, but you'll just get the overall concept. What I can do is insert that particular view. So I'm going to go insert from file, insert views from file. I'm going to select that drafting view project we created. And now basically it'll bring up a list of all our sheets and our views. So I can say show drafting views only, show schedules, show views and sheets. I'm going to say drafting views only, even though there's only one in here. We don't really need to narrow it down. Check that off. And now you'll notice this has to do with there's elements already inside of this project that the linked view is using. So instead of duplicating them in this project, it's just saying it's changing them to use the projects. Okay, so now if I come down to my drafting views, there's my parapet section. So if I jump back to this overall section, I can create a new callout view. It's not a building section, it's a detail. That just has to do with where it's going to be located in the project browser. And I can reference another view here up at the top. Okay, so I'm going to pick this parapet section. And now you'll notice when I go to this view, it's referencing this section that we created. This detail that we created, sorry. What I also wanted to do was delete out that linked AutoCAD drawing before you bring it in here, but that's fine, we'll just delete it here. But that's basically that. So it's basically a workflow of preparing them inside of AutoCAD, then starting a new project that's going to store your drafting views, linking in your AutoCAD files and tracing over and recreating them, and then just deleting that AutoCAD linked in file before you bring it into your project so you don't mess anything up with your project. But hope that helps you out and gives you something to keep you busy. It's a great way to learn drafting tools inside of Revit. And one other thing I wanted to show you was a break line, because that can sometimes be hard to find. What that actually is a detail component. And if I go to load family, detail components. It's under general. There's the break line. Okay, so I can just place that there and rotate with spacebar. And I'm going to copy another one up here. So you see how quickly we can kind of jump around in Revit. I really like the drafting tools inside of Revit. And start to make it look a little more the way we want it to. And we could even go ahead and dimension inside of here if we wanted. But you get the idea. So good luck.